first sign that something was wrong was the silence. Not the normal silence of cruising at 35,000 feet. Not the soft hum of engines that feels almost comforting. This was different. It was the kind of silence that makes your heart stop before your mind understands why. On a cold November evening, Flight 728 lifted off from Denver International Airport, heading to Seattle. A routine domestic flight. 2 hours and 20 minutes in the air. Nothing unusual. There were 162 passengers on board. Business travelers, college students going home for Thanksgiving, a young couple flying to meet their newborn niece, a retired firefighter visiting his daughter, and a mother with her 8-year-old son. Seat 23A, Seat 23B. Her name was Emily Harper. She hated flying, but her son Noah loved it. As the plane lifted into the sky, Noah pressed his face against the window. "Mom, we're above the clouds." Emily smiled, even though her fingers were gripping the armrest. "Yeah," she whispered, "we are." She didn't know those clouds would be the last peaceful thing she'd see that night. 4 rows ahead sat a man named Daniel Brooks, 37 years old, former Marine, construction supervisor, divorced, no kids. He was flying home after attending his mother's 60th birthday. He had almost missed this flight, almost decided to stay one more night. He would later replay that decision in his mind 1,000 times. Daniel wasn't afraid of much. He'd seen combat. He'd faced real danger. But he believed in instincts. And when the plane hit its first violent jolt, his instincts woke up. The seatbelt sign flickered on. The captain's voice came through. Calm, steady. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing a bit of unexpected turbulence. Please return to your seats." Unexpected. That word stayed in Daniel's mind, because turbulence didn't usually feel like this. 10 minutes later, the plane dropped. Not a small dip, a drop that made people scream. Overhead bins burst open. Luggage spilled into the aisle. A woman near the back started praying out loud. Emily grabbed Noah. "It's okay. It's just bumpy air." But her voice was shaking. Then came the sound. A grinding, deep, wrong. Daniel looked out his window. A faint flash near the wing. Then smoke. Thin at first. Then darker. The cabin crew rushed down the aisle. "Stay seated, heads down." And then the captain's voice returned. This time, it was different. "We have an issue with the left engine. We are diverting to Boise. Please remain calm." But calm was already gone. At 28,000 feet, the left engine caught fire. A mechanical failure. A fractured turbine blade. Later, investigators would write long technical reports. But in that moment, none of that mattered. What mattered was the orange glow outside the window. What mattered was the smell of burning fuel entering the cabin. What mattered was the fear spreading row by row like a wave. A flight attendant named Sarah Martinez, only 29 years old, moved through the chaos with controlled urgency. "Sir, keep your seatbelt tight. Ma'am, please secure your child." Her hands were steady. Her heart was not. She had trained for this. Simulators, emergency drills, fire response procedures. But training rooms don't have screaming children. They don't have people whispering goodbye on FaceTime. They don't have a mother in 23A trying not to let her son see her cry. Daniel pulled out his phone. No signal. Around him, others were doing the same. Some passengers began recording videos. "I don't know if this will send," one man said into his camera. "But I love you, Jenna." Emily looked at Noah. He was quiet now. Too quiet. "Mom," he paused. "Are we going to crash?" That question, it broke her. She pulled him close. "No, we're going to land. The pilots know what they're doing." In the cockpit, Captain Robert Hayes was fighting for control. 22 years of experience, thousands of flight hours. His co-pilot, First Officer Kelly Tran, was running checklists as fast as humanly possible. Engine 1 fire handle pulled. Fuel shut off. Fire bottle discharged. But the fire warning light stayed on. They were losing altitude. Boise was still 70 miles away. Too far. Captain Hayes made the hardest decision of his career. "We're not going to make Boise. Find the nearest airfield. Anything." Kelly's fingers flew across the screen. "There's a small regional strip. Caldwell Municipal. Short runway." "How short?" "Too short. For our speed." Hayes didn't hesitate. "It's that, or the mountains." Outside, darkness had fallen. Below them, the jagged outline of Idaho's terrain. Inside the cabin, people were crying openly. A man proposed to his girlfriend. She said yes, through tears. A teenager texted his father, "I'm scared." The message never sent. "This is the moment. Let it breathe." The captain's voice returned. This time, it didn't try to sound normal. "Brace for impact." The words no one ever wants to hear. Flight attendants shouted commands. "Heads down! Stay down!" Daniel reached across the aisle and grabbed the hand of an elderly woman who was shaking uncontrollably. "It's going to be okay," he told her. He didn't know if that was true. Emily wrapped her body around Noah. "If anything happens," she whispered in his ear, "I love you more than anything." He held her tightly. "I love you too, Mom." The plane descended, fast, too fast. The runway lights appeared in the distance, small, short, unreal. Hayes lined up the nose. "Hold on." The landing was not a landing. It was an impact. The aircraft hit the runway hard, bounced, and skidded sideways. Metal screamed against asphalt. The left wing snapped. Fuel ignited. Flames erupted along the fuselage. Inside, chaos. Seats tore loose. Overhead panels collapsed. People were thrown forward. Daniel hit his head, but stayed conscious. Smoke filled the cabin instantly. Screams turned into coughing. "Get out! Move!" Sarah unbuckled and began pulling people toward the emergency exits. One exit was jammed, another blocked by fire. Daniel stood, dizzy, and started helping. He lifted a trapped passenger whose leg was pinned under twisted metal. "Push!" he yelled. Somehow, they got her free. Emily struggled with Noah's seatbelt. Her hands were shaking too much. "Mom, hurry!" Daniel reached them. "Give him to me." She hesitated for half a second. Then she did. Daniel carried Noah toward the rear exit. The slide deployed halfway, not perfect, but usable. He handed Noah to a man below. "Take him!" Then he turned back. Emily was behind him, smoke thicker now, heat rising. They made it to the exit together. She slid down. Daniel followed. Behind them, part of the cabin collapsed in flames. Almost a whisper now. It was cold outside. So cold, it hurt to breathe. Passengers stumbled away from the wreckage, some barefoot, some bleeding, some in shock. The plane burned against the dark sky, sirens in the distance. Emily found Noah sitting on the ground, wrapped in someone's jacket. She dropped to her knees and held him. They were alive. Daniel stood a few feet away, staring at the wreck. He counted in his head, rows, faces, who made it out, who didn't. Sarah, the flight attendant, was the last to exit before the fire consumed the midsection. She collapsed on the grass, sobbing. Not everyone survived, but many did. Far more than anyone expected after an impact like that. In the months that followed, news channels called it a miracle. Experts analyzed the black boxes. The official report concluded, catastrophic engine failure due to undetected metal fatigue. They praised the pilots. They honored the crew. They interviewed survivors. But what the cameras didn't show were the nightmares. Emily couldn't sleep without seeing fire. Noah stopped liking airplanes. Daniel quit his job. Something had changed inside him that night. When you walk away from something that should have killed you, you don't go back to being the same person. 1 year later, the survivors gathered at a memorial near the crash site. A small stone monument stood where the runway began. Names engraved, flowers placed gently. Emily brought Noah. He was 9 now, braver, quieter. Daniel came too. Captain Hayes attended, though he had considered not coming. He carried the weight of every name on that stone. When he saw Emily and Noah, he walked over slowly. "I'm glad you're here," he said softly. Emily looked at him. "We're here because of you." He shook his head. "We were all there because of each other." This is the emotional peak. Deliver slowly. During the ceremony, something unexpected happened. One of the investigators played an audio clip, recovered from a passenger's phone. It had partially uploaded to cloud storage before impact. It was a young man's voice, calm, shaky, honest. "If this goes somewhere, I just want people to know, in the end, strangers held each other. No one was alone." Then continue, barely above a whisper. Silence fell over the crowd, because that was true. In the final minutes, there was no politics, no arguments, no differences. Just human beings reaching for one another. Daniel started volunteering as a crisis responder. He said he couldn't explain it. But when things fall apart, he told a reporter once, that's when people matter most. Emily began speaking at aviation safety events, not about fear, but about gratitude. Noah, years later, would become an engineer. He said he wanted to build things that don't break. Sarah stayed in aviation. She still flies because she refuses to let fear win. Captain Hayes retired early. But before he did, he trained younger pilots with one lesson above all. Never underestimate the strength of the people behind you. The crash of Flight 728 was not just a story about failure. It was a story about seconds, about decisions made under impossible pressure, about strangers who became protectors, about a mother who shielded her son, about a man in seat 14C who chose to run toward the fire instead of away from it. It was about fear, but more than that, it was about courage. Because courage isn't the absence of fear, it's action in spite of it. Somewhere, someone is boarding a plane right now, trusting strangers with their life, believing everything will go as planned. Most of the time, it does. But life has a fragile edge, and sometimes, in a single moment, everything changes. If you're listening to this, call someone you love, forgive someone, hold someone a little tighter. Because on a cold November night, at 28,000 feet, 162 people learned how precious ordinary life really is. And in the middle of fire and falling metal, the last thing they felt was not hatred, not regret, but connection. And sometimes, that's what saves us.